I'm so excited to have Dale Matzkow here with me in the studio. Dale, how are you doing today? How do you feel right now?
I'm psyched to be here. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yay. Well, I'm excited because you're a Pilates instructor and you are getting ready to teach a Pilates course here at our studio here in Juno Beach, Florida. And I wanted to ask you some questions about Pilates because I have taken a few Pilates mat classes. I've never actually practiced Pilates on a reformer.
Sure.
I said that right? Yeah.
The apparatus,
and
yes.
The Cadillac. I don't even know what the Cadillac is, but I've heard that word a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to talk to you and ask you questions about your journey with Pilates and just some of the history too about Pilates and who you've gotten a chance to study with.
Sure.
On that note, can you tell me how you first got involved in practicing Pilates?
Sure. So my first experience was in Canada. I was actually given a book, I think, back in those days, which was most of the way that any of us were introduced to it in the 80s. And it was a body conditioning is what it was called at that time. So yeah, it was a book that I was given by one of my coaches and told that just to look at it. I had no idea what it was, but at the same time, Jane Fonda's, all her videos were out, and she had been taking Pilates for a long time at that time too. So that was kind of my first real intro into it without really understanding what it was.
That's cool. What year are we talking here?
Like 84,
wow.
84, 86 in there.
Nice. So you're in Canada.
Yes.
What part of Canada?
So that's Southern Ontario.
Nice.
Yep.
And somebody just handed you a book and said, check this out.
Just do this.
Just do this. And did you have some sort of
body conditioning?
Were you an athlete?
Yes.
Did you have any particular reasons why you sought Pilates out, or what was the situation that caused you to actually heed their advice?
Sure. So most of it was for strengthening. I was a volleyball player at the time. I had been a lifelong athlete. Certainly at this height. And my knees were always really bothering me, and just small things were bothering me.
Yeah.
And it was through implementing the Pilates or body conditioning at the time that I was able to mitigate any real pains that I had at that time.
Nice.
And I just kind of continued on with it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
When did you start training to become a Pilates instructor?
So that was at the end of my career. I was modeling at the time, and all the models were doing Pilates. And it was again back in the early 90s that nobody really, they knew about it, but it was kind of like a secret. Nobody was really talking too much about it. It was just on the sites about becoming popular, and people were starting to do it because the rich and famous were doing it. So I think it kind of dovetailed into that whole movement.
Gotcha.
And it was from there that I stepped into a studio for the first time. I had mat practice, but I had stepped into a studio and I was shocked by what I had seen, and I became super addicted to it and loved how it made me feel. And it wasn't until I got on the equipment that I really felt like this is exactly what I could see myself doing my entire life.
Nice.
More importantly, teaching it.
Yes.
So I fell in love with it straight away.
Very
for
cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit of the history about Pilates? All I know is that there's a man named Joseph Pilates.
That's correct.
And he's the founder,
Yes.
and I've heard that he had practiced yoga and probably did, and was a dancer. Am I right there?
Nope.
Not
Incorrect.
a dancer. Sorry. Okay, thank you. All right.
You're
Good.
fine,
I'll get a good lesson here.
You're totally fine. You're fine. It's a misconception, right? So his background was that he was German. He was a physical movement educator, practitioner himself, and an inventor, a writer. And he came up with this method while he was in a camp in the Isle of Man during World War I, and he used it to help himself and his fellow gentlemen that were on the island with him to get themselves to feel better. It was their active daily routine just to keep themselves healthy while they were interned there.
Yeah, interesting.
And then coming to New York, he came to New York shortly thereafter and started, I believe he wrote his first book he wrote 3 books that we kind of still to this day use. Everybody uses them. And it was off of that he then developed his mat class more into the method that we know it to be today.
Is that considered classical Pilates?
Yes.
And it originally started on a mat, and there was no equipment.
There wasn't any equipment. He found that there were originally 34 exercises, and that's that book that I brought you to show you. And what was your response?
Well, when I first looked at the pictures, I said, this is yoga.
You did.
And then you said, no, it's not.
Yes, and this is something that I love. Right. So that's the first thing that I said. I used to say that all the time because I had a very strong yoga background prior to my Pilates.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of how it, again, transitioned me into this. I walked in and I was like, this is yoga. So much of it was yoga. But I feel that at that time, what was familiar in my body was there were similar movements. Once I got to the equipment, it was very different.
At what point did Mr. Pilates invent the equipment and then began to popularize that?
So I think that was more, and I think he was always inventing it. From my understanding, he started at the camp with anything that he could use, he was always utilizing.
That's cool.
Yeah. And the mat was the first. That is the essence of his work. And the equipment was developed after because people were having difficulties doing the mat work. So people think it's the other way around, that the equipment, that was it, but that was invented, that he came up with that to assist in the mat, and then developed from there over 500 exercises.
Interesting. What do you think and maybe there's a clear answer to this, or maybe it's more speculation, but what do you think was his motivation behind the positions or moves that he created? You said there was 34 original positions.
Yes.
How would that differentiate from yoga in relation to, if you were the inventor, what would you think was the mechanisms or the thinking behind the way that he kind of differentiated the practice from, say, a classic yoga practice to this is Pilates? Like, what are the big differences?
I think primarily for me, and I can only speak to myself, is that in my yoga practice, I would work really out of the joint. So I'm hypermobile. And it wasn't until I got into Pilates where I learned to stabilize and then mobilize my body. And it was the perfect combination for me of stretch, strength, and endurance, which I definitely need the endurance aspect of things. So I think that was a lot of it, but overall it was, for him, it was a strengthening method. And he really believed that his method would change the world, and he was wanting people to do it every day. So I think there was a lot of that back behind it. Does that sort of answer the question?
It does. It sounds like there's a little more emphasis on the strengthening component.
For sure there is.
Than putting emphasis on improving flexibility. I'm sure flexibility naturally improves by doing some of the movements, but it sounds more like it's strength orientated.
It is definitely strength orientated. And it can go the other way too. So he was training dancers, and so you had them coming in. They were already so strong, but they were injured, and he would then look at the injury, but always work around the injury. So there were stories that people came for knee injuries. I know my teacher came for shin, ankle, knee, and who was his assistant, and he just worked completely around the injury to the injured area to then support it.
Gotcha. How then would you relate or compare Pilates and physical therapy?
That's a dangerous.
It's a dangerous question.
It's a dangerous zone.
Well, now I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Why? Well, how could that be a dangerous? How could that? Is that a controversial idea?
Oh, sure it is. Right.
Because physical therapists say you should be coming to physical therapy, and we're licensed.
That's right.
And therefore you, got it. The same way, like as a massage therapist, I'm not supposed to crack you.
For sure.
That's for the chiropractor, right?
That's it.
So there is that challenge between these two professions, or
and
these two?
I think that there's not so much of a challenge as opposed to we understand in our practice, we understand what our scope of our practice is, and that is not our job to treat or
Yep.
We don't diagnose.
Yes, I get it.
There's nothing of that. But we work closely with people's doctors and physical therapists every day.
Yep.
So there is that mutual respect there for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
That's cool. That's good that there's a little distinction there.
For sure.
Uh-huh. Nice. And so you said you started to train like early 90s, like in actually becoming an educator / teacher?
No, so that I didn't do that until later. I was a student for at least, I'd say probably hardcore student. I'd say close to almost 10 years.
Wow,
so
nice.
I was a student first, and the teachers would say, oh, you should do this, you should do this. And I was like, forget it. And it was coming to my certification to get certified either in yoga or Pilates. And I went the Pilates route.
Yeah.
Because there had been already so many yoga teachers. And there were there were several Pilates instructors, but nothing like there are today. So it was just something that I was really intrigued by, and I felt fantastic every day from it. And I loved the equipment. So that for me, that's where I focus my energy.
That's cool. And where did you do your training?
Oh, I've had a couple. So I have all New York based primarily, and Salantes, it was a movement salon space. It was more of a contemporary approach was my first one. And then I went through the Pilates studio in New York, which is the authentic method.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Ooh, I like the fact that you said the authentic method. Are there
yes,
like in yoga we have like so many different styles.
Yeah.
Can you give me a little bit of understanding of like what the main styles in Pilates are and what some of the, not politics, but just some of the, like, are there certain styles that people deem as legitimate? Another style, like, is there like a denominational and non-denominational element to Pilates?
Sure, there absolutely is. Yeah. And those of us that have been in it as long as we have, I try to avoid that, and I know what works for me. But I'm trying to be in a space of where everybody has a voice and everybody's practice is important. So there are several different schools. Gosh, there's so many now from when we were first, especially out of New York, because that's where Joseph Pilates was. That's where the method was honed, and that was the original. That has a different element to it, I believe. And there are contemporary approaches without going into names, but there's, and they're wonderful as well. So to answer your question, yes, there's several different distinctions.
Okay.
And contemporary, classical, original.
Is classical and original the same?
Yes, in my opinion, yes. Yes.
So we could probably break it into two categories of classical and contemporary.
Sure. Yeah.
And
I think that's fair.
To the school that you go to, was it like affiliated underneath Joseph Pilates?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
And now there's a lot of schools that are completely not affiliated.
That's correct.
Got it.
Yes.
How would you differentiate then simply classical from contemporary Pilates?
Ooh, again, slippery grounds. For me,
I didn't realize. I didn't know there was so much slippery ground.
Yes,
well, I should have assumed that because there's slippery ground in everything.
Sure, right.
But
yes.
Okay, cool. I'm. How would you answer that though? Just
for me,
yeah.
For me, only answering for myself personally. There's the classical approach. I guess it would be like ballet and other forms of dance was how my teacher explained it to me, and that made sense for me. So there's things within the classical system that they stick to, and in contrology that they stick to, and they stick to Joe's original work. Not very often do they deviate from that. I do hold contemporary background, so I kind of do what I like when I like, which is also wonderful to have that side of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like whatever. For me, the studio that I was in, that's how, if it's a classical studio, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
So yes.
It sounds very similar to the Ashtanga world and the Vinyasa flow world,
much. Yes.
where you have a set sequence of postures, real intense sticking to the vinyasa and breath movement coordinations.
That's
and then
right.
you have teachers, or those of us that teach vinyasa flow as well, or teach vinyasa flow. We get to choose.
Yeah,
okay.
and that's wonderful.
Yeah,
That, I think that should be, everybody should have that choice to whatever works most for them and their clients. For me, I love the classical work. I always have, but I also appreciate the other work that I'm seeing, because we know much more about the body as well now, as opposed to we did even back when I started. There's so much more information that's coming out.
That's true.
And but I never tire. I never get tired of learning. I never get tired of my method. I just don't. So I think if that can keep your interest after that many years, there's definitely something to it.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Is the way Ashtanga has a sequence of poses, you mentioned that in Pilates there's about 34.
There's 34 original
mat exercises.
And then we have 500, over 500
different movement exercises that can be done. Okay, wow.
All the different apparatus.
Wow. Okay, gotcha. But on the mat, you would break it into about a 34 different movements.
Those are the ones that is the entire mat system. So it is a system.
Yes.
Right? And you would not have somebody come in and do every single exercise. I would not. There are people that do. I would not do that. So I've always given, depends on the person, 3 to 5, and we give them homework. So the mat was always homework. And so when you came into studio, the understanding was that you had done your mat work. So when you came into studio, you were able to do other things, and they could see that you had taken responsibility for your body, which was, it's a way to reorganize the body on a daily basis before you go out into the world.
Very cool. That makes sense. Can you explain a little bit the terminology? Because you had mentioned contrology, and I'd never heard that word until I met you. Yeah. And I thought, what a cool word. The study of control. I'm guessing has to be the definition of that.
Mind, body, and spirit.
And so, how would you define contrology?
For me, I would define it. For me, as the complete coordination of mind, body, and spirit together. I don't think you can have, there's been a movement that's just kind of been like body and mind. I don't think you can have the first two without the third. I don't. And Joseph Pilates didn't either.
Interesting.
So I really stick to that. And it is the way that you control your body. You want to be in control of your body at all times throughout every sequence, throughout every exercise. So then the mind that follows, right? Whatever you're thinking in the mind is going to manifest in the, as you know, in the body.
Yeah.
Sure.
On what level, or how did Mr. Pilates weave the spirit side in, mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul? Because then that gets into potential like religion and or spiritual belief.
Dogmas,
did he possibly did he have a way of blending that piece into it? Because I didn't realize that Pilates actually. That's something that in yoga we definitely notice that there is like a mind, body, spirit connection, and agreed that, or I think it's similar in that we could in the yoga world make it a little more secular and potentially remove the spirit/soul component and make it just about mind and body.
Yeah.
And then I guess from the yoga side, we could think, well, you could blend in any spiritual concepts you have into your practice. Sure. And then if we're in India, we potentially would pick up on some of their traditions, whether it be Hinduism or Buddhism or Jainism. But on what level did Mr. Pilates, if he's from Germany, did he have a Christian background? What kind of spiritual background did he bring into it?
So for him, I think his spiritual practice, from my understanding, what I was told was that he believed that when the mind was calm, the body then follows. And then within that, you integrate that into a lifestyle system.
That's cool.
He believed mind, body, spirit, and he ended up he had a place upstate New York as well that he would head up to on the weekends, where he was fanatical about that private time and just giving himself that time of reflection. And so it was nature for him as well.
Yep.
I have not heard too much about his own personal beliefs.
Cool.
But I do know that he was definitely dabbled in the spiritual aspect nature of things on several different levels.
Yeah.
Because his background, you know, he did gymnastics, but he martial arts, so circus.
Yeah.
Those were his background, boxing. So there was, and he definitely, I think later in life, he was more reflective, and that my understanding is that side came out much more in the practice for him.
Got it. Cool. That's cool. When I looked at the book that you brought for me today, I saw something that looked like lying on the back, taking the legs up vertically, and then taking the legs above the head, much like we do in yoga with, say, plow pose.
Right.
And so can you explain a little bit about the actual technical skill and or ideas that you attempt to convey when, say, teaching that particular movement? Is there like a specific Pilates style of
cueing?
Cueing,
Yeah, so I think you were talking about the rollover, perhaps.
That sounds, kind of like when you're laying on your back, you take your legs and you roll them over the top of your head. I don't know if you actually roll all the way over.
No,
just come to plow.
Yep.
Working the strength of your abdominal and hip flexor muscles and quad, and probably doing that hip flexion movement.
Yeah.
And
articulating the spine.
Okay.
And holding the spine in that positioning as well. So there is movement involved, and we want to see that the movement is controlled. So similar to when we've been in class and we've all seen it, people just throw their legs up and over. Probably not the best exercise if they're using that much force to get into it. So the system is established that it's building, one builds on top of the other. So when it is done, if you watch it, if you see it, you can't think that one position is not linked to the other, because it's quite obvious that the system is in place. And if there is a broken link or a missing link, you also see that within the practice.
Yes.
So it's pretty interesting for sure.
That's
but we
cool.
want to make sure somebody is capable of understanding the concept of Pilates and able to utilize that in every single movement. So there has to be that mind-body connection. They have to be aware when they're on the mat. They're not just looking around and there is a focus element there's concentration, and that's what we're trying to really get across in the movements for sure.
That's
and then
cool.
you challenge them by taking that away during our inversion work.
That's cool. I wonder, a lot of times when people think of yoga, got some roof work going on, so maybe you heard that, that I wouldn't get injured in yoga because, like, say I've never taken a yoga class before, and I have my rose-colored glasses on for what I would imagine yoga to be, like this mind, body, soul practice that would help me to restore some sense of equanimity or like happiness in life, and also get physically fit.
For sure.
And I don't think of like, oh wow, yoga, I'm going to get hurt. But then if I have gotten injured practicing, do people practicing Pilates that have like a classic type A personality like I do, do they ever get hurt?
That's accurate.
Do they ever get hurt?
Oh, sure. You know what?
Because like any movement practice is possible,
and
right?
It's not, I think in any movement practice, correct. I mean, you can see the best people. We do no harm. That is obviously one of the main goals for us, is to never do any harm. But you also, I've never had, knock on wood, in my class, I have not had that, but I have seen it. And it's usually, and not even in a class, it's in a studio setting, that somebody hasn't done safety first. That somebody hasn't been paying attention. There's not the basic and the fundamental work has not been there to challenge them, then to build on that. So we pretty much know that as soon as somebody comes in, even if they say they're from they've done Pilates before, as soon as we see them from the first exercise, which I'm sure you can also attest to, you pretty much know the strength of their scope of their practice.
Yeah, good point.
And then you go from there, and you're able to either pull back or to challenge them. And so you are reading the body. Most important thing is the one piece of advice that my teacher gave me, because you do get so fixated on, like, when I was an apprentice, I was like, what can they do? And you can do this and you can do that. And he was like, it is as basic as listening to their breathing, because that is going to tell you more about them as a person and as an individual to what their practice. So the breath is always going to show you before the body does. And he was not wrong about that. So you can have somebody walk in and you're just kind of watching, you see their posture, right? We make that assessment right away. It's just your eye after this many years of being trained. And then you listen for their breathing. And as soon as they hit the mat or the equipment, it shows you so much. So are they breathing correctly? And Joseph Pilates would say, it's the first thing that we do in life and the last thing that we do. So we should learn how to do it properly.
That's great. Yeah.
Right?
Sound advice.
Yes, but there's so many people that come in, you'll see them holding their breath. And when they're in that state of just hold, they can't release that.
Yeah.
They can't release the muscles properly or align their spines, because there is this grip pattern that does happen. And it's just something that has helped me in my own practice to be really aware of. Even when I do my own practice, I'm like, well, okay, I'm not breathing properly, or just I'm not breathing deep enough. Yeah.
That's cool. I remember I had sustained an injury. I'm not exactly sure from what or when, but my friend Tim Feldman, who's a yoga teacher, said, I recommend that you go and try Pilates, as a way to rehab.
That's great.
Because sometimes maybe we're doing things like repetitively, and to go to another way of looking at the body and moving could potentially get us to figure out a solution or strengthen in a way. Do you often have people coming to you from with injuries? And can you give me an example of a situation where there was an injury and you guys were able, through Pilates, to be able to retrain the musculature to heal that injury?
Yeah, sure. So I think every day we have somebody that comes in with an injury, whether it be ankle, right up the chain, right? So you can start with, you'll have foot injuries or ankle injuries. Knee is quite common. Low back is so common. And it's usually something that they've done, and they'll say, oh, I don't know what I did. And I said, well, how did you do it? What activity were you doing? Oh, well, I was doing, I went down to pick up a great weight and just turned the wrong way. And I'm like, right there, Yeah. And it's usually something that has been done repetitively over time. And one time it just doesn't take. So that's really wonderful. That's a huge part of our practice, that we're able to help people regain that strength and mobility and recover from and help them recover their natural day of everyday activities and everyday life. So that is really, I think that's such a wonderful part of the practice, which I'm sure you can attest to here as well.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm curious, I know you're getting ready to teach a 4-week Pilates series here at the studio.
Yes, I'm super excited about that. Thank you.
I know. I'm excited too.
You're going to be in class. Right?
I'm definitely going to come. Yes. The first time I went to Pilates, I went to a mat Pilates class. I've never actually worked on the reformer before. Right. I went to a mat Pilates class, and I made the mistake of thinking, well, I have a yoga practice. This will be a piece of cake. And it was very challenging and it kicked my butt.
It's
and it was humbling. Yeah,
it is very humbling.
I'm curious, if I say on one of the classes you were to have a 20-year-old and an 85-year-old come into the class together, and how are you able to make it appropriate for each ability level? Is that a challenging thing to do in Pilates, or is that relatively easy?
It's relatively easy, surprisingly enough. It's relatively easy because there's always some, I don't want to say modification, but yes, there's always something that you can change to suit. It is for everybody, and you can change it and adapt it to whatever you need to suit that person. So I had a woman that was recently in my classes, and she had said that to me. She said, I had been doing Pilates for so long, and it really she ended up getting hurt, and she said, and every time I walked out, I knew I should be feeling better, but I just didn't. And she said, it really upset me because I enjoyed it, but I was always hurting myself. And so we took her practice and we started the entire thing standing. And now she's able to do 80% of the work that she never thought she'd ever be able to do again. And so you can adapt it, you can change it to suit whoever is in front of you, and that's something that we do. Teach the body in front of you. It's not about us as the instructor of molding people into these positions that maybe aren't suitable for them. It's to be in the same space and sharing a space. And I feel that it is a healing space that we're in. And how can we benefit the person that is in front of us on any given day? It doesn't matter what they have going on. We should be able to be present enough and aware that we can challenge them, but at the same time in a safe manner, and have respect and dignity for the person that you're teaching in front of you.
Yes. Right? That's a novel concept.
What? Isn't it?
Is there, we hear about certain yoga worlds where it's very strict. We've heard stories about, and I won't name any names, but like somebody practicing maybe in India and they weren't doing the posture correctly, and so they get a little kick or they get a swift little whack or something like that. Is there a little bit of that strictness in the Pilates? I mean, I guess with teachers, there's so many different, like all of our personalities can come out. So if somebody is strict to begin with, and then they take Pilates and teach strictly, or if someone's kind of relaxed in their whole experience of life and they become a teacher, they might teach in that relaxed way. But is there in the classical method, is it kind of strict and make you work hard? You jumped right on that. There's not a lot of gray there. All right.
For me, definitely, any teachers that I have experienced are strict.
Yeah.
And they this is how it's going to be. Yeah. And you're like, but, I remember I had a teacher. One of the things that made me fall in love with the method was that somebody was kind enough to see my body as it was in that moment. My inseam is a 35.5 inseam. I was in a class with all dancers, and there I was trying to hold my legs out on a 45-degree angle. My back was bowing. I'm certain of it. Like my back hurt, my knees hurt, just everything hurt. My hip flexors were like on fire. And it was something, and he was a PT, and he just walked by me and he looked at me and he said, bend your knees. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like in my head, nobody ever told me to just bend my knees, and it took all the pressure, and I was like, oh. And I was able to perform what was required and what the exercise was actually looking for. So that was a very humbling experience for me. So while it can be strict in one regard, there has always been respect. I do know what you're talking about. I have also had those teachers that I've just walked out within the classical system of just being like, what just happened?
Wow.
Because the older school teachers, when I was young, definitely. I had one teacher in Canada that used to use a poker, and poke you,
all right,
and hit you. It was constant, and you were just like, it's just what they do, and they're cranky. I don't know, but so yes, to answer your question, I think it is much more towards type A, I would say, in many regards from my experience when I first started, for sure. I think it's definitely leveled out now to where people are much more respectful, and they're strict, but you can still have personalities where you can be strict but be kind.
Yeah. Yes.
That should never not be the case.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you can blend compassion and strict together, and it can work really well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It shouldn't be this, like if you see Joseph Pilates in some of the poses and teaching, you would never probably ever want him near you. Like he's pushing somebody's head down between their legs, he's pushing on their back, and the person's just like just buckled.
Yeah.
And so you're just like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
We know a lot better now, right?
True.
So, yes.
There's been a leveling out across the whole field, it seems like,
Absolutely.
in all these different modalities.
For sure.
I wonder why that is. There's such like an intensity. Is there the intense, maybe we're getting a little bit more into a philosophy or philosophical, but
sure.
I mean, even in the world of body work, like if we would just pick something like Rolfing is an intense form of body work.
Absolutely.
And I've heard more now that Rolfers are trying to like tone it down a little, so it's a little less scary.
Right.
People aren't like, oh my gosh, I would never go to a Rolfing session because they'll make you cry. So now they're trying to like, soften that a little bit. In the yoga world, definitely there's been a little bit of a reckoning in terms of like, with the personalities that, pushed it. Obviously, it happens in Pilates. Why do you think that is? Are we just getting smarter? Or are we getting softer?
I think, no, we're not getting softer, I don't think. There's some of them. I mean, I think there has to be, for me, I think that I have seen the softening per se. I definitely have. And because the other way was just so aggressive. Yeah. So there had to be a reckoning, because a lot of the things that were being done weren't correct and it wasn't of value, I think, anymore. There's certain things that are, but there's certain, to belittle somebody is never, I don't know where your point is going.
Yeah, good point. Great point.
I think, so we have seen it across the board, and I think it all comes back to treating everybody with dignity and respect and kindness. Yeah. Like, they're there to just move their body. So how about being in a space that supports that? And what's better than that?
Good point. So in Ashtanga yoga, we start off with sun salutation A, then we do some sun salutation B, and then there's the fundamental asanas, triangle, twisting triangle, and a few others. In a classical mat Pilates class, where would you start me? Like, what is if you said you would maybe pick like 5 of the 34 to give and say like a 1 hour class.
I would only do.
What would we start with?
Well, since I know you're a yogi, that kind of, I'd probably push you a little bit more, but I would challenge you on things that I knew that you're very comfortable on the mat. So if we were in a mat, if we were in a room,
when you say comfortable on a mat, you mean like lying down on a mat?
No, I mean like you're a yogi.
Just
so I
being
know
used to being on a mat.
Yeah.
But how could somebody be, I mean, I understand how somebody could be uncomfortable, but what do you mean about, someone who's not used to working on a mat? Do you mean just not having a lot of physical practice prior to?
Yes.
Gotcha. Now I understand.
And so I knew I would know I'm going to have to challenge you a very different way. Yeah. So for me, I would probably look at some of the pre-Pilates things, but more importantly, I would challenge you with the wall work that we do and just see where things are there, because that kind of really teaches you a lot about somebody's alignment as well as the mat. The wall is one of my favorite places to start for everybody, because it is our mat standing up.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people tend to, when they lie down, they do get a little disoriented. Yeah. And to where they're finding their centering aspect of things, it's easier to find standing up. A lot of people will also, it's an automatic response for people when they lie down onto the mat to close their eyes. Yeah, so then they're not present.
Good point.
And we really want to keep them present. So I would
start working standing and leaning hands on wall or back on wall? Or
usually I would do back on wall, but I would also start with footwork to see what your feet are doing. Yeah. Because people are like, well, it doesn't really matter. It does matter. Yeah. Because then I'm going to see your alignment of your entire body from there.
Does Pilates or classical mat Pilates integrate balancing on one leg?
For sure. Yep.
What is an example of a
one-legged wall squat?
One-legged wall squat.
Example of that.
So what does that look like? You put your back toward the wall and you bend one knee up, and then you bend your standing knee and just do a little squat action?
Nope. So you find a seated position against the wall. I think when you did that, you were so wonderful to do that video, and I was like, oh, can you just take a video? And we did that, and it was a wall squat.
Oh, yeah.
And that's it. It's a seated wall pose.
Gotcha. Put your back on the wall, bend your knees, and slide down.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And you're holding yourself there, and we're going to see the alignment of the body. We're going to see how you're challenged under in the strength aspect of things, or what happens to your body when it's put under, I don't want to say stress, but yes. Yeah. And then we're going to remove one leg to see then how the body shifts and challenges you. I would totally do that for you.
All right.
Absolutely. I would love that. I'd be like, this is so good. Because you would make me think outside of the box as well, because I do know your Ashtanga practice is so wonderful. It's so beautiful. And I know that I can challenge you, whereas somebody else that comes in, I would have to assess them in a different manner.
Understood. What's the wackiest thing you've seen a Pilates,
Wow.
a Pilates, someone calling their classical Pilates, and then just going way off the mark, adding music and heat and weights and
so many things. No, I have no problem if you want to add weight. I just want to make sure somebody's being safe.
Yeah.
So I've seen so many. I mean,
I'm just curious. I would just love to know what would, according to the Pilates world, what's like, oh my gosh, what are they doing over there? What? What is that?
Yeah, there's plenty of that. Probably the craziest thing that I've seen is hula hoops.
Hula hoops.
Yeah. I don't understand.
Just taking it into a whole new direction.
Taking it far. You're going out. You're way out left field.
I have not seen a hula hoop yoga class yet. I'm sure there's a hula hoop yoga class somewhere too.
Yes.
Isn't that a funny thing how we have to blend everything into something? Like instead of just enjoying Pilates or yoga, we have to now turn it into
adding things in that don't need
so many different things. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm all supportive. I would
understand.
be the first to say
I
I'm
appreciate
supportive
that.
of people that want to explore that. That's great.
But I like that you're really trying to uphold the classical element, especially that you're calling it a classical class, and therefore you're holding to that. That's I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think that's valuable, and that we could come to your class and then walk out with the understanding that, that was a classical mat Pilates, and be very clear about it. It wasn't we don't question too much. I do like that about the classical methods.
Yeah, I think that is something that's very similar. I studied Ashtanga as well. So when I went to some place and they were like, an Ashtanga class, and I was like, but is it really not? So you get into that, but is it really that?
Is it actually?
They can use it, right? And you can say what it is. And I'm like, no. Yeah. And so that's kind of the struggles that are there and that are real.
Yeah, I hear you.
You want to keep the integrity of any of our methods. I think that's the most important thing, is to keep the integrity of the method and keep it alive, for sure.
If anyone that is listening has been practicing Pilates, has appreciation for Pilates, and they're wanting to become a Pilates instructor, what type of advice would you give them?
Do your homework.
Yeah. Just keep practicing.
Keep practicing. Keep practicing. And
what if you were to go take a Pilates training? Where would you go currently? Where do I go? Can I study with you? Do you train people?
I train teachers, sure. But if it was me and I was, my love is classical, but I think it has so much to do with the teacher. Yeah. So I think
connecting with it, finding a teacher that you connect with.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my teacher, when I had a very strong background already in Pilates, I had been doing it for so many years. In 2010, when I finally connected with him and found out that
what is his name?
That was Lawrence Hayward.
Got it.
He was in Canada, and I think after I connected with him, my mind was blown. And it was sometimes just takes that certain teacher. There's a couple of teachers in New York that, and anytime I'm up there and I revisit them, I will always find them. I spoke to a teacher yesterday that's a mentor, she's a phenomenal teacher, and she is much more, what's the word that I'm looking for? She's much more an intuitive teacher. So she'll really pay attention to the body, and I'll go back to her anytime because I really appreciate that structure.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
What she has to offer. Yeah. So I think if anybody, there's a new teacher ever, I think understand what it is that you want from your practice and what it is that you want to teach and put out into the world. That's a great place to start, but you have to be clear on that, and then seek out different teachers and see what sticks for you.
Yep. Yeah, good answer. I know that for you listening might not be local here in Juno Beach and or the surrounding area. Is it possible that you'd be open, Dale, to me using the live stream at the same time that you're teaching the in-studio class?
Yes, that's definitely something we could discuss for sure.
All right, cool. So if someone listening is interested in studying with Dale, reach out to us and we'll set the live stream up to make that an option. That's cool. curious, as we're getting closer toward, I want to be respectful of your time and kind of head toward closing our conversation. What did I miss? What question did I miss out on? What else do we need to know either about you and or your history, or something about Pilates or contrology that we did not touch upon? Do you feel like there's any other pertinent tidbits of info?
There's so many. The second I walk out, I'll come out with 20. But while I'm sitting here, I felt like it was really well-rounded and wonderful. And I'm just really appreciate the time and reaching out and connecting and allowing me to have a space to express something that I desperately, so truly still love. After 23 years of teaching, I still love it so much. And every day we're blessed to do what we do. And I'm sure you can feel that you share the same sentiments about that. Oh,
absolutely. And I'm so glad that you came and started practicing here. I remember the first time I saw you pull up on your electric bike and you had your yoga mat on over your shoulder and you came in with such enthusiasm and excitement for practice. And
that's right.
And even the fact that you mentioned that having lived in New York City for so long and just like you were so happy just to like be cruising around on your bicycle and not even needing a car. I love that.
We don't need cars.
And then I saw you walking down the beach one day and I'm like, oh, she's really active. She's like, I keep seeing Dale everywhere, just like walking around.
Totally. I love it. As much as, listen, that's part of the practice too, right? We have our walks every day and it's our work becomes a moving meditation. And I definitely think that that's what my mat and my practice is for me. It is a moving meditation. And I do hold on to that even in my daily life as I'm out walking, doing my errands or doing whatever I'm doing. Beach time for sure. Always an opportunity to do the standing 100 or anything else. Right? It's great.
Yeah, good point, Dale. Good point.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate it.
Can't wait to take class with you.
Absolutely. I can't wait to have you on the mat. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.